about to provide is true and accurate.
Yes.
Mr. Jorde?
Thank you. Please state your name.
Cynthia Kruthoff.
And, ma'am, do you own land that is potentially affected by the proposed Summit Hazardous Pipeline?
Yes, we do.
And in which county is that?
Crawford County.
And does that consist of three separate and distinct parcels?
Yes.
And I note that you filed pre-filed testimony on your behalf as well as other members of your family. Is that correct?
Correct.
And if we were to walk through all of those questions, would your answers today be substantially similar to those in your written testimony?
Yes.
Do you have any material updates or corrections you think need to be made at this time?
Yes, I would like to do a few updates.
Okay.
First of all, the water that I had in my pre-filed testimony coming out of the Minnesota environmental study, it showed that there'd be 13 million gallons of water used in the capture facility. Now that Mr. Powell had done testimony, we know that in Iowa it would be between 20 million and 55 million. So if we could update that part.
Oh, okay. And anything else?
Actually, two things. The insurance, also with the pre-filing, we are waiting to hear back from our insurance agent. And we did last week. He called me and said that right now they still don't have an answer for us. They're trying to get a site pollution insurance. But they're basically, because this is such an unknown territory, we're kind of in a wait and hold type of a pattern. So.
Okay, very good. And along with your question and answer, you also caused to be filed various attachments and exhibits. Is that right?
Yes.
I would offer exhibits 88 through 105.
Are there any objections?
To the extent that is just the pre-filed testimony and pre-filed exhibits, we have no objection.
That's correct.
Seeing no objections, the board will admit. Ms.
Kruthoff.
Go ahead.
Kruthoff. Yep.
Yep.
Okay.
I have one more update, if I could.
Sure, go ahead.
And I'm not sure if this is the right time for it. And I was really hoping that Mr. Burns would be here, because when he was talking to, Mr.
Skuvenek.
Yes, thank you. I can never pronounce that name. They talked about our property and the alternate route. So I'm not sure if now is a good time to bring it up.
Now it's fine. Everything is
Okay.
being captured in the record. Everything will be reviewed very thoroughly, briefed very thoroughly. Nothing will be left unseen.
Okay, so I'm not sure where they got the alternate route that he had talked to him about that morning. And also that Eric had said that there's probably, Mr. whatever his name is, there was probably a pipeline is the reason they put the jog in our parcels. We have no pipelines on that land. So I just want to make sure he understood that.
Okay. Thank you for that. And with those updates and corrections, I will tender you for cross-examination.
Thank you.
Mr. Taylor.
Thank you. I'm Wally Taylor. I represent Sierra Club. So did you ever talk to Mr. Skuvenek yourself?
No, I did not.
When did you first talk to anybody from Summit, either a land agent or some other representative?
Well, it started when we got the letter, and our family, because this is an LLC of our 5 siblings, and so we discussed it. We did a lot of research. We went to the informational meeting, and we just decided as a family that this was not something that would be good for our farm or that we'd be interested in pursuing. So when the first land agent came, after the informational meeting, he came out to the farm, and my brother actually spoke with him and said, sorry, we're not interested. We'd rather not participate. So if you could please leave, and we'd appreciate no one coming back. So we're not interested. So they, of course, did not. So we kept getting visits from Summit, the different land agents. They're persistent. I'll give them that much. I mean, even to the point where, they knew when a white pickup came down the lane, it was going to be a Texas plate, and it was Summit, and, they pounded the door, and didn't answer the door, didn't answer the phone, because we have a landline with a voicemail on it, so I knew which numbers, and they left voicemails. So I think it was, we went from Sean Rice to John Hollingworth, and then John Wagner, and then finally Patty Ward took over our case, and she called me up in, it was probably middle of 22, and she just said, I have a pile of paperwork for you here in with your offer and your easements. You're going to need to call me back in order to get it. So I thought, well, she doesn't realize that we're not going to take the bite on that. I just deleted the message. But then so then out of the blue in October, we received with USPS, I didn't have to sign for it, we just received the offer and the easement at that time. So about a year after it started.
October of last year?
Of 22,
Yeah.
Correct. And then probably last May, one of our Crawford County supervisors spoke with me, because I've been kind of vocal in board meetings about Summit, and she just said, have you negotiated with them yet? And I said, no, we really don't want to negotiate with them. We have nothing to negotiate. We're not interested. We do not want a pipeline on our land. And she had told me, she said, well, it'd probably be in your best interest to go ahead and talk to them, because if it goes to eminent domain, the condemnation board will not look favorably on you if you do not at least attempt to negotiate an offer with them.
So the county supervisor is telling you this?
Yes. So, I mean, I thought about it. It's like, why should we have to negotiate for something that we do not want? It's like inviting your vacuum cleaner salesman into your house when you know you're not going to buy it. So, but I thought, well, I'm a farm manager, so I better do what's in the best interest of the LLC. And I didn't want it to go to the condemnation board and then have a negative outcome because of something I did not do. So I called, well, then we were with Brian McGregor at that point, and he was pretty consistent on Saturday nights about 5:30 calling. I could probably set my watch to it. He must have just went down the line. So this time I actually picked up the phone, and to his credit, he didn't drop it. He came right and talked to me. So I asked him, I told him we still were not interested in signing, but if he could go ahead and send us an updated offer or an easement, that would be good. I also asked him during that phone call if two things, I guess. I asked him if they had completed, if they were still surveying, or if they completed all the surveys, because we had never agreed to them. And he told us that they had completed 3, but they were looking for permission to do the 4th one. And I said, absolutely not. We don't want to give this permission. And I said, besides just that we don't want you on our land, it's also the land that they're going to be surveying was CRP land, and this was in July. So I don't know how much you know about CRP, but from May 15th to August 1st, it's considered primary nesting season. Excuse me. So you don't go onto the land unless you absolutely have to. So I said, no, it's not a good time to survey, and we don't want you on the land anyway. So then I also asked him how many trees that were going to be destroyed on our land because of this project. And he said, well, I'll get that information and I'll get it back to you. And he did. He sent me an email a couple weeks, probably wasn't even a couple weeks, so about a week later, that said I think it was just over half an acre of trees would be destroyed with this project.
So when did these conversations occur?
In May of this year.
And is that the last contact you've had with anybody from Summit?
Well, as far as the land agents, yes. But, I mean, we've had contact with Summit at the Board of Supervisors meetings and different meetings like that. Riley and Kaylee were there, and they knew us. We knew them. I mean, nice people, but just they knew where we stood. And then we also, last summer, they had a safety open house meeting. I know that Vicki talked about a little bit earlier, that we found out about it from a gal who lives in Red Oak. And she called and she said, are you guys going to this? And it's like, what are you talking about? So she she gave us the details, and it's like, yeah, I would like to go and talk to him about the safety. So we went, and it was a lot of Summit people there. Not too many people in attendance. There was a lot of unsigned easement landowners there. A few landowners who had signed, and then that's about it. So it was pretty much one-on-one. But I did ask a couple questions. Nobody could answer my questions about the capture facility, something I'm very interested and passionate about, that as far as how much water they're going to use, what kind of chemicals they're going to use, where the wastewater is going to go, that whole process. They didn't have anyone on site that was knowledgeable in that area.
Pardon me, is there an ethanol plant in Crawford County that is on the Summit pipeline route?
Yes and no. I mean, they've signed their easement, but they're not hooked up to be a capture facility, I believe, at this point anyway. Currently, the CO2 is piped underneath the highway to a dry ice plant, Carbonics, Continental Carbonics. And I'm not officially sure how long the contract is, but I believe it goes for another 5 or 6 years. So at that point, I don't know if they'll switch over to Summit or what the plans will be. But they definitely signed the easement for it.
An easement for what?
For the ethanol plant, for it to go through. It's going to go through, sorry about that. It's going to go through the ethanol plant in Denison.
The pipeline itself?
Right.
Okay.
Right, so I don't know if it'll be the capture facility, but we're trying to be proactive. The other thing we asked about was the wells, if there's any regulations as far as how far back the pipeline would have to be from a well. They said no. And they said, like, really? Not even 50 feet? Nope, we could build it 2 inches from a well. There's no regulations. I was kind of concerned about that one. We asked about who was invited to this open house, since there wasn't, I mean, it was pretty sparsely attended, and they said, well, they had sent out invitations to all the city officials and the board of supervisors and then all the landowners. And it's like, well, we didn't get an invite. So they said, we found out later, all the landowners but the unsigned landowners were invited. So we kind of crashed the party. And then the last thing I asked the gentleman was, I asked him to see a plume modeling. And he said, well, only after the permit is signed and we start construction will we release that information, and then we'll release it to the EMS and the first responders. And I said, okay, well, when do the landowners get to see it? He said, never. He said, but we'll teach you what to do in case of an incident. That wasn't too reassuring.
So who was there on behalf of Summit?
Oh gosh, from Sabrina, Rod Dillon, I don't know, Kaylee, I think Riley was there. And there was like 3 or 4 that I did not know. Another project manager, I talked to him a lot. I know they had it set up like 4 tables, and when you walked in, like one Summit representative would take you and then go through each of the tables for their displays. So I'm not sure the other ones.
Kind of a dog and pony show?
Yeah. I mean,
can we pull up the KMZ map? Does that look like your property?
yes.
And is that the route of the pipeline as you understand it to be?
Yes. Excuse me.
Did you have any discussions with anybody from Summit about changing the route or anything like that?
No, I mean, I kind of told you my whole discussions with Summit. We really did not go into the easement or the pipeline route.
You said you had some CRP land. Where's that?
Okay, so like this. Oops, I'm sorry, I got you in the eye. This area right here, it's 66 acres, and that's all CRP.
What kind of a triangle?
Right. And then it goes, down to the other part. So we own, it's a 240 acre farm. So it's like, it goes, I mean, the whole thing here.
So is there any cropland on it?
Yes, the west portion of it is
Okay.
in crop, like 101 acres there.
Okay. It does not look like there are any occupied structures close by, is that right?
Correct. No one's living on this farm.
Okay.
It was our family's century farm. Actually, our family is very blessed. We have 2 century farms in our family, so we're living on the other one.
And do you know what impact the pipeline would have on the status of your CRP ground?
Well, I've had numerous conversations with the FSA office regarding that. It would definitely be taken out of the program. And then, I've asked if we'd be able to get it back in, and she said if there is only minimal damage, would it come back in? As far as if we signed a voluntary easement, it would be extensive. This is our 6th year into the program, so we would have penalties. We'd have to repay everything that we had gotten in rental income from that, 25% penalties with interest, paying back all of the cost shares that we received from it. So it's quite extensive. And the jog in there is what I'm talking about that Mr. Burns was asking about. We have no idea why they would have jogged it over like that.
Can we back out and see where the pipeline goes? I take it you never talked to anybody from Summit about why that
No,
zag is there?
it's probably to line it up is what I would guess, but I don't know. We've met a lot of union pipeline people, like even here at the hearing and other places, and they've all said you don't want to do that with those corners in there. That just makes it all the more. The straighter it is, the better if you have to have it.
Okay. Thank you. That's all the questions I have.
Ms. Coles?
Good evening, Ms. Kruthoff. I have a question. You have a lot of timber and that kind of thing. Is there a waterway or something that goes through that area?
Yes, there's Coon Creek that goes through that.
Could you please bring up the KMZ map so she can show me where that's at?
So it's oh, here it goes. So it goes right now. You can kind of see where it goes up. So we have right now we rent it out for a calf operation in the pasture. So
Where's that? Is that to the east or west? Or?
that's to the south,
Oh, south,
that
okay.
area.
Okay.
Because over here is the field. And there's a couple concerns with this, how it's going to be doing, because one of the reasons we put this into CRP, number one, the whole farm is HEL soil, highly erodible land. So it's very susceptible to erosion. It's not the greatest ground to grow on, so we put it in the CRP for that reason, and also the reason because of that creek. When my dad farmed it, my grandfather farmed it, the tractors were a lot smaller, and then you could go over the creek. I mean, you could just go down and up. But now with the larger farm equipment, they were unable to continue to farm over there with the big equipment. We did put in a small tube that we can drive over, like, with the pickup or something like that, but not heavy equipment. And so the access to the farm, that's the other issue with this too, is that to access this land, it has to come across that creek, and it is a half a mile from the pipeline to the nearest road. So when you read in the easement that they have to have 24/7 access, they're gonna have to come all the way through the farm, past the homestead, which, I mean, no one's living there right now, but down a big hill, across that tube. Just kind of wondering how they're even going to be able to get in there. And I know other people have testified that said that they're going to follow the easement down, but you can see how it crosses the creek, the pipeline does. There's no way they can just use their big equipment and come down the pipeline easement, if that makes sense to you.
So around that pipeline construction is highly erodible.
Oh, the whole thing is highly erodible, and it's very concerning. You know, you read about the Satarsha, Mississippi, and this is the same type of soil, the very erodible, kind of the less soil that does this, and putting a pipeline in there, especially in the creek, you know, I think we're just asking for problems.
You mentioned a homestead. Where's that located? I don't see that on the map.
If you zoom out a little bit, it's in this area right here. So this is, okay, I was going to say, this is the road right here. So for access, they have to come in here, go through a farm field, past the homestead, down a hill, across the creek, and into the CRP land.
Do you use, you mentioned there's a kind of a forested area. Do you use that area to hunt?
Yes. My brothers, yes, and we invite friends and family to hunt in that area as well, which is, you know, the habitat right there in that area. I spoke with the Fish and Wildlife Department, and we actually have 4 endangered species in that area, 5 migratory birds, which he said, I said, well, if they do this, won't it take the habitat away? He said, well, yes, but he said, and it's not going to take all the habitat away, but it will definitely put a dent in it. And that's something that we're really, I like the trees. I think the trees serve a purpose, and the thought of having a half an acre of them being destroyed, I mean, not only in our farm, but all the trees, think of all the trees in this whole project. If they spent the money that they're spending on the pipeline into buying some land and just planting trees, I mean, I think that would take a lot of carbon out of the air. But anyway, so yes, that area, they do hunt in there.
Do you do no-till on that property?
Definitely. My dad was one of the first in the area to do the no-till.
Going back to that beautiful area, do you have any plans for any construction?
Construction, no, but the barn, the old barn that my great-grandfather built is located on the homestead area, and we've always had plans to renovate it, kind of waiting for the siblings all to reach retirement age, and that was kind of the plan, to be able to renovate that barn, and then over actually on the CRP land around right here have a hunting cabin, and, you know, kind of expand it into more of a recreation area that the family, the grandkids, nieces and nephews love to go to the farm. I mean, just absolutely love it. So to have a kind of a retreat area for the family is something we've always dreamed of.
So that's pretty much been forgotten because of the location. How close would that put you to the pipeline?
Oh, exactly. If this goes through, there's no way we would do it. And that's kind of been put on hold.
You indicated that part of your land is pasture land. How many cattle do they typically run on there?
I'm not sure what the tenant does.
Okay. Thank you very much. I have no further questions.
Ms. Ryan?
Good evening.
Good evening.
I just have one quick follow-up question about your tenants and the cattle. Do you have concerns about being able to continue to rent it for that purpose in the future if the pipeline's built?
Well, we did, but we've kind of taken care of that. I terminated their lease in September because of this. 2 things, because of the pipeline, and we're going to probably be doing different things with the farm. We realize with the pipeline coming in, we're unable to do any more like building terraces or doing any kind of thing, so we need to get that done sooner than later. So we had kind of all the plans are up in the air, but no, we did terminate the lease because there's no way that we could ever live with ourselves if, you know, we had a tenant out there and something happened. I mean, how do you sleep at night knowing that I mean, you signed the paperwork or you agreed to get it in or you couldn't protect them. So we decided it was better to terminate the lease and wait and see what happens and do it on our own. With the plume modeling, I guess it came up in the testimony about Navigator and the 1855 feet. So we kind of applied that to see how far it would go out and what it would impact. So that was one of our decision-making factors. Very concerning, the plume modeling. I know this weekend even, and kind of, what am I going to object to here? I went out to Google Earth, and just because I was curious of how many people this really impacted.
State your objection.
Again, this narrative response is non-responsive. The question was, are there concerns about your ability to continue renting that land to your tenant for cattle? I think we're far beyond the answer to that.
Ms. Ryan?
We can move on. But it sounds like then just the possibility of the pipeline has already forced you to make some major changes to your plans.
Definitely we have. Like I said, how can we possibly put other people in danger? And then also the other part of that is our tenants, we require them to have liability insurance as tenants. So not only are we having trouble getting insurance, they would be in the same boat. So and I guess I just wouldn't put them in that situation.
So has this already cost you money?
Yes. It already has, and then the CRP land, not just the CRP that they're impacting, but also it's in the middle of the field. You saw they have to be able to get to that, so that's an additional one. And once CRP is very specific in their contracts, you do not enter those fields. And I was really upset that Summit entered them. I mean, even after we talked to them about the surveys and not going on that land, they trespassed on it and they went on to do their survey regardless. I went over right before our testimony, about the week before our testimony was due, to take some pictures, and walked up and I saw the tire tracks going through the field, and it's like, I called the tenant right away and I said, you guys on this field? Because they know I'm very much of a stickler for that. And they said, no. They said, but Summit was here. We were emptying the grain bin and they pulled up and they said that they were going to survey, and that the first thing they said was, did you talk to Cindy about that? And they said, yep, we talked to her. She said she was fine with it. So they lied to our tenant. They went over there. When I went to take the pictures, I just thought, I'm going to see where they went. So I followed their track, and they went all the way up to the ravine, stuck a stake in the ground, and then I kept following them. They went all the way down to the other side of the field. This is nice grass and flowers that were growing. I mean, it was up to my chest, and then instead of following the same tracks back, no, they made new ones all along the fence line to go out. So not only did they lie to our tenants, they trespassed our land, and they violated our CRP contract. So things like that, it's like, how do you trust a company? I mean, they can't follow the basic rules. And I explained to Brian on the phone about the primary nesting season and why it was important not to go onto that land. So they knew about it.
Thank you. That's all I had.
Okay, I believe we have questions from the board.
Yeah, Ms. Kruthoff, I was just going to follow up on a comment you made about Board Member Burns' question to Mr. Skubinek. So if we could pull up the testimony on page 45. And scroll down a bit. Oh, it's right here. It's the next question that's starting right there. Yep. So do you see the question that starts with although?
Mm-hmm.
And if you could read that and the answer to yourself.
Right, I'm familiar with that.
So I believe one of the questions that Board Member Birds asked of Mr. Skuvenek was whether the pipeline could be rerouted to around the fence line. Is that still something that you would be interested in pursuing?
That's the way, if we had to do anything, that would probably be the best option. But they had talked about taking it off of a parcel, that we wanted it off of one of the parcels, and that, I think it just got interpreted wrong, but.
Understood. Okay. And I don't think that we saw an attachment 22 with a drawn.
No, I don't think it was on there.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Jorde for redirect.
Yes, thank you. Could we look at the KMZ, please? And while we're looking at that, ma'am, I just want you to narrate so it's clear. Again, I know you're against this, but if it was going to be placed, I just want to make sure the record's clear of what your proposed reroute would be. Okay, so we've got the 3 parcels. What would the reroute be?
Well, we would just say, like, come in. They said they can do right angles, but, even if we don't want right angles, but go around the fence line and go straight down there and over and out. Sorry.
Okay, so if we're looking at the north, the proposed route would enter on the very northeastern corner of that affected parcel and just run straight south.
Right, along the line, so be
Yes.
the least intrusive.
Okay, so basically it's just would be moving it over like about a quarter mile, 140 acres
Right.
parcel. Okay, to the east. All right. Did you say you had endangered species on your land?
Yes.
How do you know that, and what are they?
I contacted the Fish and Wildlife Department. So we have the northern long-eared bat, the tricolored bat, the monarch butterfly, and the western prairie-fringed orchid. And 5 birds.
And has Summit or any agent working on their behalf contacted you about that, or about to do biological surveys relative to those endangered species?
No, not that we've heard, but we haven't had. I kind of thought that we would get the results of the survey given to us, but we haven't. So I don't know that if maybe they noted them. We don't know because we didn't get the results.
In terms of terminating, you've already taken the step of terminating your farm lease. Obviously, if you don't have row crops on there, that would be a significant economic damage and hit to your family, correct?
Correct.
And you had stated that the surveyors had lied and that they're not following your instructions or respecting your directives. Is that right?
Correct.
Have you made any conclusions to why they're not doing that? Are they unable to follow directions? Do they not care? Have you made any estimates of why that would be?
Objection, Your Honor. A, calls for speculation. B, that the record doesn't support the claim. There was a mailing refused on 3/22 for survey. There was a mailing delivered on 11/5/21 for survey. This is just not accurate.
Mr. Jorde.
Well, I don't know what the mailings have to do with surveyors telling her tenant that she gave permission, which is absolutely a lie. That's a fact. So I'm not talking about any mailings.
Correct, yeah, and I talked to him on the phone. That's when I had the conversation with Brian McGregor and told him we did not want, and in fact, I even followed up with an email that said we do not want any surveying on our land. Which you know exactly, about the CRP was the primary reason.
Have you ever come to conclude that Summit acts this way because of all the political support and cover they have, so they don't have to follow the rules?
I would definitely see that weighing into it. It's been kind of obvious all along that they've had the ear of the governor. It's just the landowner is definitely the little guy. We feel like we're in a David versus Goliath fight right now. So, and even the landowners that I talked to when we're trying to organize and kind of educate landowners as far as why this pipeline might not be the best interest for them, have said, Cindy, it's a done deal. It's just, you know, who can fight? Who can afford to fight them? They have deep pockets. It's going to go through. So you might as well sign now. You know, and even some at the Boulders meeting said that too. They said, you know, they didn't say that, but as far as the money goes, they said, if the pipeline goes through, you'll get to keep the money. It's our risk. It's your money. It's our risk. So really, there's nothing to lose. It's like, well, yeah, because you didn't tell us about the dangers of this. You didn't give us the risk analysis. When we asked questions like that, it was, I mean, just like the plume modeling, put off.
Okay, I don't have anything further. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kruthoff. You are excused. Thank you. Okay, I think that was our final witness for the day. Appreciate everybody working through that. We will be back here tomorrow at 8 o'clock. Thank you. Have a good night.
Have we determined if there's anybody else available for Thursday, just as a scheduling matter?
At this point, no. I mean, I continue to work on that, but you know, I pulled together 26 people in relatively short notice, so that's probably the best that we could do right now.